Welcome to Global View. Today we have an exceptional guest, General Michael Flynn. Thank you so much for joining our show. It's an honor to have you here.
It's great to see you guys. Thanks for having me, and always an honor to be with you too. You guys are just great patriots, great Americans, and God, what we've all been through, and we're still fighting, which is the most important thing.
Thank you. I have one first question. Last time we had a chance to talk about the election, Trump was not yet the president of the United States. Today, we finally have him back. What do you think is the future of America, and do you think he will take down the lawfare?
Yeah, so that's a big question, and so let me unpack a little bit as much as I can. So first of all, I think when he was announced as president of the United States, much of the freedom-loving world took a deep breath. I really believe that everybody around the world that felt like we needed to get Donald Trump to stand up against this sort of Marxist globalist left. So the actions that Trump has taken since he won the election and the types of people that he is putting around him, we're going to see two key members of his cabinet get confirmed today, Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. And I think that, from the beginning, and we've seen this, the pushback, even in the Republicans on the Senate. I mean, to take this long to get his team assembled is not because of the deep state. It's because of the sort of the permanent state in Washington, D.C. and the establishment that are really in this case, in the United States Senate, who have been pushing back and slow rolling and delaying some of the nominations. I mean, we're lucky to have the nominations in there now. People like Pam Bondi, Pete Hegseth finally got through. I mean, I'm kind of waiting on Kash Patel here. So that's the second part, was to assemble the team, his sort of main body team. And then you have these other, frankly, about, probably 1,000 to 1,500 more people that must be assigned and appointed into different key political jobs. One of the things for people that are watching this, Trump signed this morning an executive order directing Doge and Elon Musk, which I'm a big fan of. I mean, I think everybody watched it's going, yeah, clapping and cheering for Doge and for Elon. But he signed an executive order this morning that basically directed that for every new hire being brought into the United States government bureaucracy, 4 must be eliminated. 4 positions must be eliminated. That's a big deal. So that means that's almost a, I don't know what the correct percentage is, but that is a reduction of the scale and size of the executive branch, certainly the executive branch of government, by quite a bit. And I think that one of the things that needs to happen is that and Elon's a good example of this, of what he did at X or what he did at Twitter. And I know Trump has this in his plans to reduce the size of the government probably by about, if not 50%, by close to 75%. Because what people need to understand is that all of the executive branch of government, is basically created by the President of the United States. The best example is the Department of Education. So Trump appointed Linda McMahon to be the Secretary of Education. She's in the job now. And then the other day, a week or so ago, maybe 10 days now, Trump, he told the American people that we're going to eliminate the Department of Education. So people think is that all these departments that are there are created by law. They're not. They're not part of the Constitution. They're not created by law. They're created by executive order. And then once you create a bureaucracy, it ends up being this, this train that you can't stop, right? And it just keeps, going and growing, and it gets out of control. Well, Jimmy Carter is the one that created the Department of Education. And since the creation of the Department of Education, the United States of America's education system has completely collapsed. It's pathetic. We put more money into, each child's education than like the next 10, nation state countries combined. And yet we're down in like the lower third of public school education in this country compared to other nations. So that's just one example of something that Trump is going to do. there are going to be other departments and agencies and activities that are going to be eliminated. And I know this because I've been paying very close attention, and I was in Washington, D.C. last week talking to some folks, and I know some of the key people in parts of the administration that are being directed to start looking at closing down shop. So I think the American people are excited. I think the rest of the world, the globalists out there, are not. They are constantly attacking the media, as you guys know all too well. The media, the mainstream media, and the puppets and pundits that are still part of the Marxist left, that are in our country, that are tied to this globalist crowd. They're not giving up. I posted on my X post this morning, to kind of remind people that, Trump's he's taking all these right steps. Elon is right there with him. Doge is right there with him. He's still assembling his team. Tulsi and Robert Kennedy will be confirmed today, but there's still much more to be done. And the deep state is not going to give up easily. They're not going to walk away. So that's kind of where I feel we are right now with President Trump and the movement forward. And there's a lot more work to be done. And I know you guys have played a big role in that. I think that more and more people need to see the film, right? The film that I know I'm a part of, and I love being a part. I was honored to be part of it. But that film tells a story of what we faced then, and it's like people need to go watch it because it's what's happening now. They're just doing it in more subtle ways. So the deep state elements of the intel community, wait until they start to release things like the Epstein files, okay? Yep. The JFK files, they're starting to leak out some of this stuff now, but wait till you're going to see the gnashing of teeth. You might even see some serious threats to people's lives over these Epstein files being released. I'm serious about that because there's so many people that are going to be exposed. Never mind, what P. Diddy and his files will show. So, these are interesting times. These are times that we all have to be awake, alert, pay attention to the kinds of things that you guys have been exposing for years, especially in that great docu-series that you've created.
Well, no, thank you very much for that, General. And yes, it was an honor, of course, to have you part of that film, All the President's Men, that Simona was the lead interviewer on. She's obviously an incredible talent, and
right.
Her work and your work speaks for themselves. I want to go back to what you mentioned about the big bureaucracy and how Donald Trump is cutting the bureaucracy and the deep state from within. We had a last president who was pretty much on autopilot. We've had other presidents in the past essentially hijacked from within and run the country themselves on autopilot with the ever-growing bureaucracy within the White House and the military-industrial complex. So what I believe President Trump is trying to showcase to the American people is, I am a hands-on president. I was elected with this overwhelming mandate to enforce the laws and to implement what you want me to do, meaning the American people, with the popular vote, with the landslide electoral college vote. So how do you think cutting the federal budget, the federal inefficiencies, are going to impact how President Trump operates the next 4 years? Do you think it's going to be a very small group of advisors, around 15 to 25 people that he just takes advice from? Or is he going to evolve as a president the next 4 years? Just what's his governing style going to look like with all these cuts is basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great question. And, it really is the $64,000 question. But I think that, having gotten to know Trump and then working with him closely, he's a person who takes advice from a lot of people. He really does. He's wide open. He's definitely, people that are outside of the government that he knows, he's listening to. So I know that. I know that for a fact. Let me go back as part of this answer, though. I think what we have learned is Obama was really the first. He was it's very clear that he was sort of handpicked by, the Marxist globalist elements, right? I mean, he really was. He he pretty much, like he said, he fundamentally transformed America, right? He is the guy as the president for 2 terms. And what happened was when he finished up, as his tail end, the American people started to feel it. And they knew that something was definitely not right. Donald Trump comes into the picture, and he's basically he's brash, he's honest, he's different, he's not a politician. He wins. He defeats, the heir apparent, in this case, Hillary Clinton, right? They then go after Donald Trump for 4 years. We got caught up in that. And it was really ugly. I mean, it was an ugly period of U.S. history that still needs to be exposed, and more will be exposed by people like Pam Bondi, by people like Kash Patel, and others that are around Trump, because those things, and people still have to be held accountable for that. And then you go through, the theft of the 2020 election. I'm not gonna go, well, maybe it was. No, the 2020 election was a stolen, rigged election. Everybody knows it. Joe Biden comes in as the sort of the appointed one by Obama, and by the deep state cabal around that action. I mean, look at the 51 intel heads, right? I mean, that crowd. I mean, that's a small example, a data point of how they came in to really try to rig the election, and then they did. Everybody knows that Joe Biden, anybody in Washington, D.C. knew that he started to have early signs of dementia at the tail end of being the vice president, right? Never mind, damn near his entire term. So Joe Biden was really not making a lot of decisions. And frankly, one of the efforts that I'm supporting, and we'll talk more about this maybe the next time I come on with you guys, is to challenge these 8,000 plus pardons that he gave. Because if Joe Biden had dementia, if Joe Biden couldn't testify to a special counsel 2 years ago because he was incapable at that time of being responsive to questions, how could this guy? So who signed all these pardons, right? So we're going to challenge that. I don't know where that's going to go, but we're going to challenge it because there is some precedent to doing that, and we'll see where that goes. But that's a sidebar argument for the main issue, which is how will Trump guide this country through these murky waters that we are still swimming within. And I know that Trump is going to take advice from a lot of people. He is clearly, he clearly has given, not only the mandate that he received from the American people, but he's given a mandate of authority to Elon Musk, particularly Elon Musk and his team of Doge intellectuals, to take a really hard look at all of these aspects of our government and how our government has sort of what I would call, use a military phraseology, like man, train, and equip, right? How do we bring personnel into government? Where are those personnel at? Do we even have, like if we say we have 100 people working for a particular agency, are those 100 people actually on the books? Because I can tell you, they're going to find out that they're not. There's a phrase they use in government called full-time equivalence. It's how you contract for government contracts, full-time equivalence, meaning you're paying for a human being, but the human being may not be there. But that's what Doge is starting to find out. So we have people on the books that aren't even there, but somebody's making the money off of it. When you cannot go into, everything that the government runs on is our money. So it's taxpayer money. So the most important thing that Trump is going to do, and he's going to have to force himself to do this constantly, because there's going to be a lot of people go, oh, you can't be that transparent. We can't tell, the American people can't handle it. Hey, the American people just proved once again how smart we are and how much we apply good, God-given common sense. We can take the truth. The American people can take the truth. We are right now. We haven't gone into any kind of revolt or revolution, right? We're in a revolution. We're in an information revolution. As you guys and I sit here today, we're in an information revolution, and it really started under the guide of Obama. That places like the CIA, the U.S. intelligence community, elements of the mainstream media, elements of corporate America, elements of the institution of higher education, the Ivy Leagues, who have been force feeding us. And I hate to say it, but a bunch of bullshit, excuse my Irish, but a bunch of stuff that has been absolute lies and deception. As I sit here with you guys and, we've gotten to know each other over the years, what they did to people who were just trying to help the country, just trying to help a candidate, just trying to do the right thing. And what they did was they completely twisted everything. And then they attacked using weaponizing everything. So Pam Bondi, as an example, is a good guidance counselor for Trump, and he's going to be tapping into her quite a bit. But she's going to have to de-weaponize the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice is a big organization. She's going to need to get rid of all of these assistant attorney generals around the country. I think that there's a total of 63. She's going to have to change the culture of the mindset of Washington, D.C., because inside of Washington, D.C., in the case of the DOJ, you have seven subordinate organizations underneath DOJ that are departments, within DOJ. Then you have places like the Bureau of Prisons. The Bureau of Prisons is another element. ATF, the arms, the guys that take care of all of our arms, the DEA, FBI, those are elements within the DOJ. And we've seen the weaponization and the theft of their culture and turning that culture into one of really a government bureaucracy run by a bunch of socialists. One last point on this that I would recommend to everybody, and I think it was in 2018, Donald Trump gave a State of the Union speech. And I'm going to try to dig it up today because I've mentioned this a couple of times now, just so I have the verbiage correctly. But in that State of the Union speech, not only to the American people and to Congress, but also to the world, Donald Trump made the statement that America will never be a socialist country. Now, for a president of the United States, while he's in the presidency, for him to have to make that statement during a State of the Union speech, and I think a lot of people that listened to it it went right over their heads. Because it's like, wow, yeah, of course. And everybody goes, yeah, you're right. We're never going to be a socialist country. Well, the reason why he had to say that was because we were a socialist country, right? We were a socialist country underneath Barack Obama. And what Donald Trump learned during his first administration is that he was being assaulted from within, right? The war from within, like Abraham Lincoln said, we're not going to lose because of somebody that comes from overseas. We're going to lose because we're going to commit our own suicide inside of our own government apparatus. Abraham Lincoln said that. Donald Trump realized it, many, many years, almost 150 years, 200 years later, he saw it from within because, again, he wasn't a political, hack establishment guy. But you guys know this, and I know this. He did not know the ways of Washington, D.C., but he learned, and he was able to withstand the body blows because all of us, like you two, like myself and others, we stood and we fought back, right? And we ended up, beating the system to a degree, but not without a lot of pain, not without a lot of agony. And then we had to experience the theft of an election and 4 more years, which I now believe that we probably had to go through that, because had we not gone through that, I'm not sure that America would have known really the depth of corruption that we're facing. So, exactly. and then Trump had to go through that because he was attacked brutally by this weaponized government and by this, this globalist Marxist left. So now he's back, and he's back in a position where he thoroughly understands far better than he did when he went in the first time, what needs to be done. And he's taken advice from many, many places. He's listening to everybody. He may not respond. He may not repost something, but he's listening. He's listening to the world of social media. I referred, and I'll get off my high horse here. I referred to this last presidency as the podcast presidency because the mainstream media was beating up Trump left and right. What rose him to that level of the mandate the Electoral College, victory was a bunch of influencers on these big podcasts. And Trump realized that actually before the convention of the summer of 2024, he realized that, and he started getting on these podcasts. And once he did, those exploded, and he was able to get his message out about what he wanted. And frankly, there was a lot of other, Blacks for America, Hispanics for America, you guys, the whole world of the people that are immigrants into this country that came here legally and see the throes of communism that we're building in our country.
Yes.
And that's what Trump is up against. So this idea of socialism that has crept into America is very real. Trump is going to have to continue to fight that, and he's going to have to rip the guts out. And that's why, you see the things that he's doing through these executive orders, and that's kind of how the executive branch runs. It's incredible what we're seeing, what we're learning, the corruption, right? The amounts of money. Elon just posted, I think last night, how do these people that get $180,000 a year in salary, how do they make $13-14 million in a year, and then they're serving in Congress? How do they do that? Elon kind of, tongue-in-cheek joked about, he says they must be good investors. We should take their investment advice, right? So
yes, and it's really a point about accountability. We still need a response. We need a reaction. We need to set the lawfare has to be gone. People should be free to support their candidate. And people like you, like George, like everyone who fought for the current president, they find an era of American history, which is the era of fighting back, the era of not succumbing to the deep state, to have the courage to go against the system when the system was still not known to the most. So, it was really, really strong. And I think people like you not only have a place in advising the president, but do you believe you will be part of, or are you willing to be part of this new administration?
Yeah, I am. To answer that question, I am. But honestly, I have seen from the last few years too, the effectiveness of being on the outside and not being tied to a desk so I'm on Team America, which is led by Team Trump. I see you guys in that role too.
Yes.
And I think that there's a level of effectiveness for people that are on the outside that can be, I can be, myself. I can be brash and bold and outspoken, which I have been, and I'm going to continue to be, but also wise in the in the structure and organization and how government runs, and to be able to fight in those battles, that that Trump will do those things, but there's going to be other people in government that government operates at a different speed, and no matter how much Trump will do to straighten out the government, it still operates at a different speed, and so, but you're hitting on something else that's really important, and this is why I'm honored to be friends of you guys, and I'm honored to be part of this show with you today.
Our honor.
But I'm
also our honor.
But I'm also honored to be part of a group of people that did exactly as you said, stood and fought back. If there's anything that is the fabric or in the DNA of Americans, is the idea of courage and accountability. We got to be courageous. You guys are extraordinary in your courage and standing up. And you know what? And also another point, if you're stuck together, you stay together. I can tell you, I know this personally. These are not easy. Those were not easy times. And they're still not easy times. But this idea of accountability is so important, and the idea of courage. Those are the two things. The American people want accountability. And trust me, you guys know this. The American people are going to demonstrate a level of courage throughout this next series of battles as we continue to fight this war against this communist, Marxist, socialist, globalist, this combination of elements and isms and beliefs that are competing ideologies to essentially what is Americanism, which is the idea of our Constitution and the idea of freedom. I mean, these are people, when we look at enemy forces, from a military perspective, these are people that are opposed to our way of life, and they don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in freedom of speech. They don't believe in freedom of religion. They don't believe in our Second Amendment. I mean, they will abuse our rights. They'll abuse the Fourth Amendment. I mean, these are people that don't believe in our Constitution and believe that it should change. I mean, look at the gnashing of teeth by members of the House and members of the Senate right now, because frankly, folks, they've been caught. So they're going to be held accountable. Number one, you guys have been great examples of two people who have said, we're accountable for our actions, but what our actions were about helping this country, and we didn't do anything wrong, right? It's the same thing. But the gorilla of this weaponized government gets on your shoulders, and they're pushing us down. And you know what? I feel, and you guys ought to feel very vindicated by the election victory of Donald Trump. And now we're seeing the movement forward. We are now advancing. So to go back and use kind of my military, experiences and background, we are now advancing on the enemy. Okay, and the enemy they're not on their knees yet, but they will be soon. But they are definitely on their heels, and we're on our toes, and we're moving forward at a pace that will outmatch anything that they can put against us. And I know you can see it in Donald Trump's eyes whenever he's in there getting ready to make a statement to the media that thinks that they're making a difference. They ought to get rid of all the mainstream media and the White House press corps and just bring in guys, bring in influencers and put them at the forefront, because that's who the American people are listening to. So thanks very much for everything that you guys have represented and have done. And people need to see that great docu-series there done by Sean Stone and you both. And it's a great, all the President's Men, if I got the name right.
Yes.
It's
and
wonderful.
Also your film is very, I invite people to watch your film as well, because it's very, very good.
Yeah, Flynn, deliver the truth, whatever the cost. That's what I'm going to continue to do.
General, I have one last question. You mentioned President Obama and how so many of the issues that America as a whole faced really started from him, how he was essentially a Manchurian candidate that was propped up by various agendas. I completely agree with that. I think that's exactly why in 2016, when you had a populist nationalist candidate like President Trump and a team that supported America First, was attacked not only by a domestic weaponized agency, but globally, including Five Eyes. And this is all things that I think are eventually going to come out. So my question to you is, what is the most important piece of information that the president can declassify from the Obama era that can not only bring accountability to the crimes that administration committed against individuals like you, myself, the president, his family, but restore credibility to the system as a whole? What are the most important files that President Trump can declassify and reveal to the American public, in your opinion, as somebody who was working in that administration, working in the Trump administration, and was a direct target from him?
Yeah, good question. So, and I'll give you two answers on that one. So big picture, I think that all of the Mueller files, the entire case, needs to be declassified. So the whole thing. To take it down to a tighter shot group, I think the meeting in the Oval Office held by Barack Obama on the 5th of January of 2017, that meeting, all the files, all the information, all the evidence that surrounds that meeting, and then maybe the few days leading up to that meeting, certainly the 24 hours leading up to that meeting, and then the subsequent actions that flowed from that meeting should be completely declassified. And I mean, like, immediately. That meeting on the 5th of January, 2017 in the Oval Office led by Obama is the day, that's the day that the conspiracy to undermine a duly elected president, truly began in earnest, right? So this was, they tried to beat him before the election. They couldn't do it. He won. He won that populist mandate, against Hillary Clinton. And then they started to turn on the engines of weaponization and undermining. And that meeting on the 5th of January was a meeting that they had very, I can go through the litany of people that were there, but that meeting is when they made the decision, we're going to go after Trump. We're going to undermine Trump. And that was a meeting that my name came up in, actually. And they talked about, what to do about General Flynn to get to President Trump, because I was I was actually appointed as the National Security Advisor already. So that's and they did not want me in that job because I had already started to talk about, some of the things that I was going to dive into, and they knew that they were going to be caught. Now, all those things took us 8 more years to get to. We're getting to them now, but that meeting is critical. So I think the whole of the Mueller investigation, as it was directed, everything, and then I think that meeting, because that's when Obama really showed his true colors, and they essentially conspired to overthrow the duly elected president of the United States at that time, and that was President-elect Donald J. Trump on the 5th of January 2017. And then 2.5 weeks later he took over, and look at what they did for 4 years. They tried to destroy him, and they tried to destroy this country, and we just can't have that anymore.
Totally agree, General.
Thank you so much for being with us. We know you're very busy. It was a tremendous honor to have you with us, and thanks for the fight, and keep on inspiring America.
Great. Thank you, guys. Stay in touch. God bless.
God bless, General. Thank you very much.